up, guys? It is the 5th episode of Fast Break Sports. I'm your host, Sam Godsey, and with me today I have a special guest, my roommate, Tanner Dislin. What's up, Tanner?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. I'm getting ready to talk about some basketball. Love it.
Yeah. So a reason I haven't been posting quite as much lately, I was back home and just didn't have the right things I needed to record everything. So that's why I haven't posted in the past 3 weeks. But in today's episode, we're going to be talking about Iowa men's basketball team. We are actually both students at the U of I, so we are both huge fans of this team. But as a returning segment, I have the obscure player of the episode. Last episode was Chase Budinger. He is most known for his time at the T-Wolves. And the hints for this player of the episode is he played center. He played at Georgetown from 2004 to 2008. He's the 17th overall pick by the Raptors in the 2008 draft. From 2008 to 2015, he played for the Indiana Pacers. From 2015 to 2016, he had played for Lakers. Then 16 to 17, he played for Hornets. And then 17, he played for Nuggets. He is a two-time NBA All-Star in 2012 and 2014. He was part of the NBA All-Defensive Second Team in 2014. He was a consensus second-team All-American in 2008 and two-time first-team All-Big East in 2007-2008. And he is actually a player development coach for the 76ers right now.
Now, Chase Budinger, no chance I was going to get this one. But this one I might have a guess. And you might have seen my eyes dip a little bit. I just had because when you said some things, I thought of a person. And I just made sure. And I think it lines up well. So I might have a guess for this one, but I'll keep that to myself.
Awesome. So let's hop right into the topic. Iowa basketball. Kind of a surprising team this year. No one really expected them to be a top 10 team, top 5. So let's get right into it. So first we're going to be talking about expectations for the remainder of the season. Iowa is third in the Big Ten Conference right now with a record of 3-1 in conference and 9-2 overall. So what are your expectations for the remainder of the season for the Hawks?
When you look at how they've played so far and who they've played so far, I think any expectation less than a Big Ten title would be kind of underselling them. They've played a lot of good teams close. And they're a good basketball team. They can beat you from all 5 positions. But the fact of the matter is the Big Ten is the best conference in college basketball. And they're not going to win the rest of their Big Ten games. It's just a fact. It's not going to happen. No one's going to go undefeated in conference. No one might even have 2 losses in conference. This is an incredibly deep conference that's just going to beat up on each other. So with that, the Big Ten championship will be a very hard thing to get with the depth of the conference. But I think you got to – and any goal lower than that would kind of be a failure.
Yeah, absolutely. And how far do you see them going in March Madness?
Thing about Big Ten teams, as I said before, how I think they're just going to keep beating up on each other. And you might have a lot in the mid, 3 to 8 seed range. So they might have some pretty difficult matchups really quick.
Yeah.
For Iowa, if they keep playing the way they are now, they look great on the road. A few more road losses, probably a 3 seed, I'm thinking. And I think the team should definitely be in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it on the head. Anything lower than a Big Ten title would kind of be disappointing not only as a Hawk fan, but just as a basketball fan in general, just because of how deep this team is. I think, and realistically, though, I think we hover around 3, 4 in the Big Ten. Like you said, it's so freaking deep this year. One team I think we're going to struggle with just because of the pure athleticism of the team is Illinois, and them having Kofi Cockburn against Luca would be a very interesting matchup. I'm looking forward to it. But I agree, it's going to be a lot of beating each other up, and we're not going to be. We're going to have a lot, not a lot, but a good amount of losses to get. But they're going to be to really good teams. I think they're going to be really close. But I agree. I think we have a very good shot at winning the Big Ten just because of how deep we are and having the best player in college basketball on our team, or on Iowa. My bad. But going into March Madness, I see anything lower than a 5 seed. I think will be kind of a shock to me, at least, and I think we could go get eliminated second round, like we've seen in the past with our good teams, or I could see us making the Final Four depending on the bracket. But just seeing the other competition out there outside of the Big Ten, I just don't see us, unless we have like a miracle run, I just don't see us getting into the national championship. But I could see us getting to Final Four Elite Eight. That's what I'm hoping for. But it was interesting in Standpoint podcast. It's Jordan Bohannon's podcast. They had Jay Billis on, and he said they could either be a national title contender or Final Four. Anything less would be kind of a shock to him, which I thought was interesting. But the way this team has played, I think it's actually a very realistic shot. But yeah, so we're kind of on the same page there. So talking about the team, who has surprised you the most this season?
It's got to be Keegan Murray. He wasn't really in the preseason hype of the team. When you kind of break it down, as us Iowa fans have done, he wasn't really on anyone's radar, and he was kind of like he's a true freshman. So the conversations we were having would be, anything we could get from any of these freshmen would be great. Let alone numerous game after game giving fantastic minutes, because that 4 spot kind of has been a problem for Iowa all year, because obviously Garza locks down the center. He's put Nunji in there, who's got the height, but is a little bit slow at times. He struggled. He's put Wieskamp in there. Wieskamp actually starts there, and he does fine there, but he's a little bit undersized. So you kind of have a weird position that's not really being filled, and Keegan Murray fills it perfectly.
Yeah,
perfectly. Even last game against Rutgers, he played the last 5 minutes down the stretch.
Yeah.
Like Coach McCaffrey's already trusting him in big spots. He shot the ball well. He's scored in every aspect. He's played good defense. He's rebounded. And one thing I'll notice, you'll notice too after I say this, anytime there's a loose ball, first person on Iowa on the floor is Keegan Murray every time.
Every time. Yeah, I mean, no denying that, but just to be a little different, I'm gonna say Joe Toussaint. You look at his numbers; they're not the greatest, but like you said with Keegan Murray, he's kind of that hustle player. He'll give you good minutes off the bench. Given he's only averaging 4.6 points, 0.9 rebounds, 2.7 assists, shooting 39%. Those aren't great numbers, don't get me wrong. But giving Jordan Bohannon or CJ Frederick their time on the bench, and being not a very drawback, if you will, He puts good minutes off the bench, which I think is important. But also got a guy that's surprised me is Connor McCaffrey. He actually has the highest, the best assist to turnover ratio in all of college basketball. And
Again, might I add, because he had that last year.
yeah,
He's just yeah. Okay, sorry. I
yeah.
just wanted to throw that in.
But again, not great numbers: 3 points, 3.6 boards, 4.1 assists, shooting 34.5%. But he got hurt during the Rutgers game, and our offense was just not running as smooth as when McCaffrey's on the floor. I think he's honestly a big part of the reason why Garza is doing so well, because I haven't seen a player that can feed the post better than he can. So both of these players, Joe Toussaint, Connor, and like you said, Keegan, they know their roles, which I think is super important because you have your star players on the team with Garza, Wieskamp, and Frederick, but you also need those role players. And I think these three players have really stood out to me.
Yeah, to your point about Toussaint, first of all, is I think you really saw his value to the team in the Gonzaga game.
Yeah.
When it was clear that everyone on Iowa was just out athleted. They were just too slow, not big enough, not quick enough. And Toussaint was. And he was the only player he was the only player on Iowa that was able to beat Gonzaga off the dribble, was able to create and get in the paint, was able to finish at the rim and kind of maneuver around the shot blockers. That you really saw what his value is, being speed, defense, and overall hustle.
Yeah.
And then Connor McCaffrey, you said it, he's the best passer on our team, and you even saw it in the Rutgers game, which hopefully the injury is manageable. I haven't really heard anything about it, but you saw when he hasn't played all game, in crunch time when we need to get the ball in, he puts Connor McCaffrey to inbound the ball because he's the best passer on our team, and he's the best post feeder on our team by far.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing on Toussaint is I think his control has rapidly improved from last year. He knows how to when to slow down, pull it back out on a fast break. This time last year, it'd be 3-on-1 and he'd still be taking a layup and missing 9 times out of 10. So I think that's another improvement for him.
And with that decreased offensive fouls, he used to push off a lot, charge a lot. But he's dialed it back a little bit this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the flip side, who has disappointed you this season?
Before I said it's got to be Keegan Murray, but now it's also got to be Jordan Bohannon for this. Yeah. I mean, he's really struggled from deep, and the nature of the role he plays is that if he's not making shots, he doesn't really get in the paint often. He doesn't drive often. He's kind of just that spot shooter, not a great defender. So if he's not making shots, you kind of wonder what value he gives on the floor.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing, like you said, hasn't been shooting well from the 3. And he's very streaky. He'll go off for 20 plus and then have 2 points the next game. But when he's on, there's very few teams that can stop us from 3 with Frederick, Wieskamp, and Bohannon hitting. But yeah, it's hard to argue that Jordan Bohannon has not been the most disappointing player this season. I think that's kind of a gimme. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, the last couple of games, he's shot better. And more specifically, there was a stretch in the first half of the Rutgers game where he was able to make a couple shots in a row. And I'm very curious if you noticed this, but when he did that, he was not the primary ball handler.
Yeah.
That stretch when he was making shots, Coach McCaffrey had put in Aaron Eulis, actually, another player who gave great minutes during that game. but Ulis was taking the majority of the ball handling, and Bohannon was more kind of roaming, finding a shot, and it's something that we've talked about in the past that obviously Jordan is a valuable member to our team, but it just seems like as a guard, he's better served as an off-ball guard and not a primary ball handler.
Yeah, I agree. He's not your traditional point guard that – I mean, in today's game, your point guard has to score. Like, that's a give me. But I agree. I think he's better off ball than on ball. But like you said, he was playing off ball in the Rutgers game. He sort of gets that when Connor McCaffrey is on the floor because Connor McCaffrey tends to ball handle better than Jordan Bohannon. So it's just interesting to see if this Connor McCaffrey injury, how that affects the team and if it's even something to worry about.
Right. And even like you said, like both Connor and Jordan are in the starting lineup. So I almost want to see Coach McCaffrey give the ball to Connor a little bit more in terms of primary ball handling. Connor and CJ can handle it for sure.
Yeah.
And then kind of have Jordan able to roam around and find the open spot and shoot in rhythm.
Yeah, I agree. I think just his shot off dribble or some questionable shot selections, if we will say. So next we're going to be talking about some notable games Iowa has played this year. One of the biggest games of the season is North Carolina. Iowa actually ended up winning that game 93-80. Iowa shot 44% from the field, 17 made threes. Frederick had 21. Wieskamp had 19. Jordan Bohannon had 24. And Garza had, I think, his season low with only 16 points. So any comments on that game?
This game was kind of like the eye-opener for me because up to this point and what the narrative been on Iowa is stop Garza, you stop Iowa, and North Carolina did. I mean, North Carolina has 3 or 4 absolutely massive bodies that were just constantly on Garza, affecting shots, and Garza struggled. But as you mentioned, Wieskamp with 19, Frederick with 21, Bohannon with, I think, 24, you said. But it was just raining threes. And if Iowa shoots well, that game was especially well. But if Iowa shoots well, that game right there shows you how damn good this team could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to beat any team with 17 made threes in a game. One thing I think people don't give credit to Garza is when he's double teamed, he tends to find the open man, and he did fantastic that game. That's why you see our 3-point shooters, Frederick, Wieskamp, Jabo, with 21, 19, and 24. Like, if we can get that, or if Iowa can get that multiple times in a season, I mean, we're one of the best teams in the nation when it comes to that.
And you look at the team makeup, the inside out should be there every time.
Yeah.
Literally every possession down the court. They're going to double Garza. He's the best player in college basketball. It's going to happen. And at that point, it's a matter of finding the open shooter and knocking down shots, which is what happened in this game. But also about this game was kind of the early season test, right? And I mean, I know at this point we're starting to get into conference schedule where you have a lot of tough games, but that was the early season test. And Iowa came out hot, and then UNC started to climb back. And in the beginning of the second half, UNC went on like a 8-10-0 run, cut the game to like 2.
Yeah.
And that also was kind of another eye opener for me because at this point Iowa hadn't faced any adversity yet, and the way they responded. Granted, they couldn't, everything they threw up was going in, but there were huge shots down the stretch in the close game to kind of seal the win.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think not only for Iowa fans, but this was just an eye opener for all college basketball analysts, fans, anybody that pays any attention to college basketball. This was like, oh, Iowa's legit. Like they're a solid team. They just beat a blue collar in North Carolina, given as in the beginning of the season during a COVID-19 season. But basketball's basketball, and there was no significant players missing from North Carolina that had COVID, so they can't blame you on that. It's just Iowa played really well that game. Now for the next game, we're going to be talking about Iowa versus Gonzaga. Iowa actually lost the game 99-88, but they were down 51-37 at half. Iowa shot 18% from the three, 14 out of 26 from the free throw. We were out rebounded 49-37. Their star freshman Jalen Suggs had 27 points. Garza had 30. Wieskamp had 20. Nunji had 10. Jordan Bohannon had a stellar 2 points. And Joe Toussaint had 14. So any comments on this game?
This game, I mean, watching it, it was kind of tough to watch because it kind of felt like Gonzaga outperformed Iowa in every single facet of the game. But I really feel like this is the game that Iowa needed to play because it really showed them how far they are.
Yeah.
From title contention. Well, they are in title contention, but how far they are from winning a title.
Yeah.
They didn't defend very well. They didn't hustle very well. Like every single loose ball was going to Gonzaga. They didn't rebound very well. They didn't shoot threes very well. They didn't shoot from the free throw line very well. All those 5 things they didn't do well, and they lost by 11.
Yeah.
To the number 1 team in the nation. And the offense is good enough to where, like, any of those 5 things, if you shoot free throws a little better, if you shoot from 3 a little better, and I'm not talking 70%, 30%, 40% from 3, you win that game. You rebound a little bit better. You get loose balls, you might win that game.
Yeah.
So any of those 5 things, if they were doing just a little bit better, they win the game. So I think that was much needed to show, like, look, we are good, or Iowa is good. This Iowa team is very good. You just need to apply yourself on the defensive end, apply yourself on the boards.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was more of a eye-opener to, yeah, UNC, don't get me wrong, great basketball program, but they're not that one top 10 team like they normally are. Now we go to, South Dakota or North Dakota, Sioux Falls, and we play Gonzaga at a neutral site. No fans, just pure basketball talent. And we, in my opinion, played our worst game of the season. Now that might be due to who we were playing, but shooting 18% from 3 when the 3-point shot is if it's not Garza, it's our bread and butter. And the fact we only lost by 11, performing our worst and then just shooting lights out. I mean, I remember watching this game, and I think it's Kispert literally could not miss the first half. Jalen Suggs was making a fool out of our defense, just doing everything he could. So
that's the thing. That's the thing about this Iowa defense is one of the things I think that Iowa struggles with very much is closing on shooters. And you kind of saw it in a game we'll talk about in the future, but when it boils down to a big shot and the opposing team makes a contested shot, everyone likes to say, like, oh, that's just good defense, like nothing you can do. And earlier in the game, they kind of found their stroke because they were shooting wide open shots because of defensive breakdowns. And if you kind of contest those a little better, they don't get hot, they don't get confident, and they don't find their stroke. Maybe that later one doesn't go in.
Yeah.
So I think that happened a lot with Gonzaga. I saw a lot of people talking about the game like, oh, Gonzaga shot the ball incredibly well, which they did. Props to them.
Yeah.
But they were wide. A lot of their shots were wide open.
Yeah.
Like,
especially from 3.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, one of our best player or scoring, Jordan Bohannon, had 2 points.
Yeah, he did not. That was his worst game by far. I remember watching it. He didn't shoot well. He was turning the ball over a lot. He owned up to it after the game, and he said, "Look, I was terrible today."
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's another thing added to the list of things that didn't do well. We basically got no production out of our starting point or Iowa's starting point guard. So, so like any of those things, just a little bit better, Iowa might win that game. And it really just shows you how good this team can be.
I think the biggest thing Gonzaga exposed us is how weak our transition defense is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
How many points
they
score off of transition? And if they didn't, it was a quick kick out to 3 and they were wide open and they were missing.
It's one thing if, you turn the ball over and it leads to a transition opportunity, but these were missed shots.
Yeah.
Like, a missed shot, you should not be getting burned in transition, every other play, right? So that was really bad. And then also just general, there were numerous times where like Suggs would burn someone off the dribble, because another thing that needs work is on-ball defense.
Yeah.
They would burn someone off the dribble, and then there would be no help, and he would just waltz down the lane for a dunk.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it's perplexing sometimes.
Yeah. But again, like we said, this was a game we showed the country we're actually legit. And I think losing to the number 1 team by 11, shooting 18% from 3, and
just like, do you have the free throw numbers on there? Because I remember we did not shoot well from the line.
We shot 14 for 26, or Iowa shot 14 of 26 from.
It's almost 50% from the line. Like, that's horrible. And by the way, I know sports don't work like this, but you lost by 11 and missed 12 free throws.
Yep. Yeah. So I think if anything can be called a good loss, I 100% think it's this Gonzaga. It exposed our weaknesses and exposed what we can do better, and that I think this was kind of a as we lost, but is a confidence like, oh crap, Iowa can compete with these top tier teams.
And another thing, but we kind of touched on this in the UNC game about how UNC came out swinging in the first half and Iowa bounced back. Mm-hmm. Pretty much the entire first half, Iowa was just getting punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
They bounced back. And yeah, it was an 11-point game, but I think with like 2 or 3 minutes left, it was like an 8-point game. And with Iowa, and Iowa had the ball. And I think it was a missed shot. But if that shot falls, looking at a 6 or a 5, I don't remember what the shot was, but you're looking at a game that could get a little sweaty down the stretch. But
yeah, I agree. But overall, it was a great game to watch, even though it didn't go Iowa's way. Next game we're going to talk about is another loss to Minnesota. They lost, or Iowa lost 102 to 95 going into overtime. Iowa shot 37% from the field, 33% from 3, 27 for 38 from free throw, which is 71%. Meanwhile, Minnesota shot 86%. They had Marcus Carr dropping 30, Brandon Johnson 26, Garza had 32, Frederick had 23, Wieskamp 14, and Jordan Bohannon with 7 points. So your opinion on this game?
My main takeaway I remember from watching this game was stop anybody, somebody, stop somebody. I mean, I remember the defense in this game was particularly bad. Marcus Carr and Brandon Johnson, open look after open look after open look, and you saw it and that's kind of the thing that I'm talking about. How Brandon Carr made a difficult shot to send it to overtime, and Brandon Johnson got hot in overtime and made a couple of those were wide open, but some of them were contested. And if you kind of make these early shots more contested and more difficult shots, less of them go in. They just don't get their confidence and they don't find their stroke that early because, like, Brandon Johnson hit 4 straight threes, and we'd still, or Iowa would still be late on the contest. It was just a brutal defensive game. And then you mentioned that Garza had 32. Do you have his field goal percentage? Because I seem to remember him struggling. I don't know if he didn't shoot very well from the field. Yeah, but defense for me was the main issue in this game. It was really, really bad.
Yeah. Garza shot 40% from the field, 75% from free throw, 20% from the three.
Well, even Garza didn't shoot great, but another thing is that regardless of the defense, regardless of Garza, if Joe Toussaint makes one of the 2 free throws, game's over.
Yep.
And I don't remember free throws being a problem throughout the majority of the game, but down the stretch, you have to make free throws.
Yeah. They're called free for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Our common thread I'm seeing is our defense. Just if our offense isn't hitting, it's gonna be tough to win because or Iowa. It's not the greatest transition 3-point defense, and we kind of again got exposed for our 3-point defense. I mean, there are numerous times I was watching this game, and Carr and Johnson were wide open or slow closeouts, and as a D1 basketball player, they're going to make those no matter what position. And I think another thing that kind of gets overlooked is Wieskamp, yeah, he had 14, but he's getting 16 to 20, 24 a night, and he only had 14, and I think that hurt us as well. Because, I mean, Frederick, fantastic game. Garza didn't shoot great, but still had 32 against Minnesota. And you got to have that third option, and we just didn't have that night. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't expect perfection, but like he said, we got it.
Mm-hmm.
Down the stretch, you have to make free throws, and if we make free throws, we're winning.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to say is that teams are starting to get smart because if you look at Iowa's starting lineup with Jordan Bohannon, C.J. Frederick, Connor McCaffrey, Joe Wieskamp, and Luka Garza, is that obviously once the ball gets into Garza, teams are going to double. But what teams are they're starting to double off of Connor, and which is kind of like the one, certainly not really a threat from deep and not really an offensive threat that much. And so at that point, it's kind of that's where we really struggle is when it's kicked to Connor, and then because he's not looking to shoot right away, so then the closeout comes and they get resituated, and then where the offense is kind of stagnant.
Yeah. I've noticed that watching Iowa play is because nobody's going to leave Garza not double teamed. And if they do, you end up like, who was that team that did double team him?
Oh, he had like 40.
It was Southern, I think.
40, 36 in the first half.
Yeah, he had like 38 in his first half, and they did double team him. So teams are starting to figure out, let's double team Garza, and leave the guy who really is on the floor to give the ball to Garza. Leave him
Hmm.
open, and 9 times out of 10, it works.
Yeah, and
And
that's when Fran needs Coach McCaffrey needs to step in and kind of figure out a way to either you know somehow be able to draw defenders to Connor,
yeah,
um, and open up those shooters because right now, or even Minnesota did it very well, and I think Rutgers did it a little bit, but Minnesota did it very well, doubling off Connor and staying with the shooters, leaving Connor, and it kind of created more of a stagnant.
yeah, I agree. But that was like the first game we kind of, at least from what I remember,
Hmm.
we saw that from a defense, and look how it turned out.
Hmm.
Um, Now this next game, we're the most recent one, Rutgers, Iowa won 77-75. They shot 46% from the field, 7 of 18 from three, which is 38.9%, and 18 of 23 from free throw, which comes out to 78%. Garza had 25, Jordan Bohannon 13, CJ Frederick 7, Wieskamp 8, and Keegan Murray coming off the bench with 14. So any comments on this one?
I just like this is easily the best win of the season so far. Um, Rutgers is a really good team. They are a good team, and the it was more of the kind of the same issues. Like the defense, of course, wasn't that great. Um, for some reason, they decided to leave Ron Harper Jr. like 3 possessions in a row, and he was their best player, averaging 24 a game.
Uh-huh.
But even through that, shot better from the line, shot decent from three. What we got from or what Iowa got from Keegan Murray, he was fantastic in that game.
Yeah, he was.
It just was an overall team win in the past, where it's kind of been like, against UNC, where it was more like Iowa won because of the shooting, and then in other games where Garza just dominated. This was an all-around team win, and it was really nice to see. It was the first win away from Carver Hawkeye,
Yeah.
too, which um, which was huge because don't want to be kind of a team that doesn't play well on the road, but all around was a huge win and a team win.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that surprised me with this game is I think, if I'm not mistaken, McCaffrey got hurt within the first 3 minutes. And
It was
like
early.
I said before, he's kind of the guy who gives Garza the ball. He's our main passer on the team. And with him out, I think our bench played extremely well for not playing a whole lot. I think Ulis, who I think is going to be really good for us in the upcoming years, Perkins provide great minutes off the excuse me, provide great minutes off of the bench, as well as you said, Keegan Murray. I mean, nothing can be said more about that kid. But I think this showed the rest of the conference and college basketball world how deep we actually are, because we lost one of our main players. And we skipped a beat here and there, but it wasn't like a severe drop off like it normally is when you have to go to your 8 man on the bench. So it's
Yeah,
interesting to see.
and bringing it back to two names that you said were Aaron Eulis and Tony Perkins. I think at least that Toussaint was dealing with an ankle injury, so he only played limited minutes.
Yeah.
So the backup point guard slot was kind of an area of need, and that's where Eulis came in, and he was very, very good. And so was Perkins. And I think one thing in particular was their fearlessness. I mean, both of them were getting into the lane, getting fouled. I think each of them had drew a foul, which was huge. I mean, because their big man was kind of shutting down Garza. So drawing as many fouls as you can in the paint, facilitating. I think both of them had very nice moves in the paint and kicking out to open shots. And they were just really good at a time where we really needed it, or Iowa really needed it, when with Toussaint battling that injury.
Yeah, no, I think every analyst is like, watch out for the depth of Iowa. And in this game against, at the time, the 15th best team in the nation, without one of our starters, and we still end up winning by
Mm-hmm.
points. Not shooting the ball horrible, but not shooting it great. And Garza only having 25. That's got to tell you something.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I just overall about Iowa, one of their problems on offense is just getting into the paint, because it kind of seems like, since all of them are looking for all of them are looking for their 3-point shot, the ball seems to kind of move around the perimeter, and Garza posts here and there, and it maybe dumps into Garza, but he might get pushed off the block or something, so he's got to dribble it out. And just that's really when the offense gets stagnant. So that's where the value comes in with guys like, even Toussaint does it a lot because he's quick enough,
Yeah,
and then Ulis and Perkins were able to get in the paint and facilitate that way.
absolutely. Any other comments on the Iowa basketball season this year?
I don't I don't think so. I just, like we said, the inside out should be automatic. Um, maybe when teams inevitably double off Connor, if you get him on the weak side and you can maybe cut as soon as guards get the ball, have him cut into the lane. Maybe they'll help off on the weak side, which may open up shooters. But you got to do something, because it seems like right now that's the route teams are going to go, and if you can't really combat that, it might be tough to 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 play that way with leaving Connor open, who really has not shot the ball well in his college career.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think teams are starting to figure out how you can defend Iowa. I think what you said would be a great move by Coach McCaffrey. We'll see if he does that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to not only see how Iowa's season pans out, but just overall Big Ten season pans out, and if COVID affects it at all. Hopefully not, because I've been loving watching these Big Ten matchups, whether it's Iowa or not. They're really fun to watch. But
I,
yeah,
that's definitely the best thing about the Big Ten this year, is that damn near every night you have a top 25 matchup
yeah,
with how many good teams are in this conference.
yeah. But at the same time, yeah, it's a great conference, but that could hurt a Big Ten team getting a number one seed in March. So it'll be
Agreed.
very interesting to see how this college season pans out. So if y'all have any guesses for the obscure player of the episode, um, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow the show on Twitter at FB_sports_pod on Twitter. Thanks for tuning in to today's episodes, and have a good one. All righty.